Well, the last time we spoke with author, comedian, voice actor, and playwright Charlie Demers was in late 2020. He had just come out with Primary Obsessions, the first in a series of novels starring Doctor Annick Boudreau, a mystery-solving psychologist based somewhat on Charlie's own therapist. Now, not even 2 years later, Charlie's back to talk about Noonday Dark, the sequel to that earlier book. Welcome back, Charlie.
Thanks so much for having me, John.
So you're back, as is the good Dr. Boudreau, and it turns out she's been quite busy since we last spoke. For starters, she has a patient who's a stand-up comic who also writes jokes on the side for a politician. Well, who does that remind you of?
Yeah, I mean, you're forgetting that the patient is very beautiful and that's their kind of defining physical characteristic. So, it's just, a threefer right across the board. It's just very clearly transparent stand-in for me. So, it's very thinly veiled fiction. And they're seeing the doctor for depression. So, clearly I was not willing to go very far afield of my own autobiographical data for any of what went into this particular character. In all seriousness, she is Danielle is the name of the character, who is the sort of, I guess she becomes the kind of structuring absence of this book. We meet her at the beginning of the story, and then she goes missing, and the presumption is that she has committed suicide. That's what all of the indications point to. But yeah, she's just come off of a job working with the newly elected mayor of Vancouver. She was doing punch-up on his speeches, putting jokes into his speeches, which was a job that I did actually not once but twice for BC NDP leaders during in provincial elections. So I did draw a little bit on that for that job, including actually using a couple of real jokes that had been written for Adrian Dix back in the what was that, the 2013 election, or there were a couple of old jokes got pulled out of the mothballs for use in this novel.
I have to say, I had a very big smile on my face when I read the part where you work in theoretical Marxism Thursdays, the line you wrote for Adrian Dix. Was it fun to mine that time in your life for the book?
Yeah, I mean, it's I definitely stretched it because in reality there was nothing super romantic about the setup when I was right. I mean, when I say romantic, I mean, I guess there was nothing super kind of exciting. It wasn't like I was going into the campaign every day and seeing everybody and being really involved with the action. It's essentially a job that gets done over email, and so I kind of gussied it up for the sake of a piece of crime fiction that has to kind of be a little bit more alluring. But theoretical Marxism Thursdays was a joke that Adrian told at the Vancouver Board of Trade right after Christy Clark had announced free enterprise Fridays. And, we were writing for, I was punching up a speech that Adrian was giving, deep in enemy territory, for the NDP leader to be at the Vancouver Board of Trade. And apparently the line just kind of brought the house down. So, and the next day it was in Von Palmer's column. And so that was my big triumph as his joke writer. And so, yeah, it was definitely fun to be able to give it to Danielle in the book and have that be her kind of shining moment in her career as the politician's joke writer in the story.
Now, you were talking about punching things up just now. Any suggestions for the current NDP crew on political messaging? They could use some help, perhaps, on the
wow
team file, maybe.
This is, I think this is you've got me way too early in the morning to answer in a politic way of this. The problem now is most of the people in government, and you know, I'm not used to this as a lefty in BC. Most of the people in government are now people who I know and like personally, and so when they do step in it, I'm always have the embarrassment as well as of a friend who goes like, "Ooh, why did you have to say it that way?" So yeah, I will politely demur on that. Demers, if you're looking for a headline on for this clip.
That's good. I like that. No, we won't cost you any friendships today.
Thank you.
Now, one of the more familiar features of your novels now is how Vancouver tends to play itself in them. This time, it's the Clark Knight corridor, or the Knight Street truck route, as we call it, that serves as a key plot device. What inspired this particular choice?
I think I was kind of moved by the sort of noir tradition of having the kind of seamy mechanics of a kind of your sort of all your sort of kind of sultry offside goings on, kicked off by some sort of just almost, chillingly boring bureaucratic question, right? Like the Chinatown water question, or even the Who Framed Roger Rabbit streetcar thing. To have some kind of municipal question that on the surface seems like paint drying, and that ends up being this sort of MacGuffin. The MacGuffin that's not really a MacGuffin. I mean, I guess because a MacGuffin doesn't really then figure into the plot so much, but just to have that be the thing that's kind of kicking off the plot and actually involves people's lives a lot more than you might think. So I think that was my thinking with that, just to have something that seemed on the surface, just so prosaic and almost boring on purpose, and to have that be the thing that kind of sort of maybe kicks off the action. I mean, the other thing is that for both Philip Annick Boudreau's boyfriend, and Annick, the story in their personal life is of a kind of upward swing in social mobility, and that is kind of tracked to, at least in Philip's case, Annick's from Halifax and sort of came to Vancouver in adulthood, but Philip is from the city, and he sort of tracks onto Vancouver's kind of sweep into affluence. And to me, the idea of potentially shifting the Knight Street corridor into a suite of, kind of a boulevard of beautiful townhomes and condominiums, with less pollution and but also less accessibility, that felt like a very kind of Vancouver-y question, and actually sort of really plugged into the kinds of decisions that are sort of up in the air in Vancouver about what kind of place is it going to be, and as we sort of squeeze the last drops out of what used to be a kind of resource town, a blue collar place where things were made and things were moved around and things were shipped out and shipped in, and increasingly just kind of becomes a place where people live and consume things. And in that context, the Knight Street, Clark Street corridor is actually this kind of strange anachronism, and so I thought it might be fun to play with that.
Now, Primary Obsessions, the first book in this series, focused a lot on obsessive compulsive disorder, something you've dealt with yourself, while Noonday Dark looks more at depression and suicide. What do you hope to get across about this particular aspect of mental illness?
Yeah, the idea with the series was that in each book, Dr. Boudreau would somehow get to sort of touch down into not only a sort of sleuthing caper, but that also she would get to brush up against some kind of mental health question that the cognitive behavioral therapist would engage. And cognitive behavioral therapy is, often associated with the treatment of OCD is the big one for CBT, but other, panic attacks, anxiety. But CBT is also used sometimes in the treatment of depression, and I've had treatment of depression with CBT as well. The interesting thing about depression, is one, it's not an anxiety disorder, it's a mood disorder, so it has that slight difference about it. But the other thing that's different about depression is that it has this whole existential side that really isn't there so much in the conversation around OCD necessarily, which is to say, we can identify clinical depression. We can say somebody's gaining weight or losing weight. They're having low energy. They're et cetera, et cetera. There are various things that we can do, and we're at a place in treatment history where those things can be addressed. But there's also always the kind of larger existential question of, like, what is life for? And is life fundamentally a miserable thing? And I have been in those places in treatment for depression where I come up with my real life Dr. Boudreau, come up at the hard wall of therapy and enter into the kind of the more philosophical world of what kind of thing life is. Is it just despairing and disappointing? And so one of the things that I'm trying to do with this book, I guess, is first sort of find with the toe of the narrative, where is that line, the line between clinical or therapeutic depression and existential philosophical depression, and can my character explore the larger kind of metaphysical questions about depression, as well as being someone who can help a patient through the symptoms of it.
And having said all that, what do you hope that the reader gets out of the book?
I hope that the reader gets what I get myself out of good crime or mystery reading, which is one, I want to spend an engaging time in the place where it's set. I feel like mystery is one of those genres where setting, especially civic setting, is just somehow more salient. It's somehow more important. The city that you're in is that much more kind of bound up with the story itself. And I always feel like I'm kind of buying a ticket to go visit that city when I'm buying a mystery novel. I want it to move. I want the story to be engaging, bring people along on the tracks for the narrative. I hope they find it funny. I hope the dialogue works for them, and that the characters are engaging, and I hope that I hope that the story is a banger for them. Like I hope that they enjoy. I hope that they enjoy the story. And then if on top of all that, they can enjoy a bit of a more kind of fulsome treatment of mental health issues. If they can also kind of wonder with me about these bigger questions, then that would be extraordinary.
And without giving too much away, this doesn't seem to be the last we've seen of Dr. Boudreau, does it?
I hope not. So yeah, I have designs for her life, and it would be my great pleasure to write at least one more of these. So we'll see. I have no contractual guarantee at this point that will happen, but fingers crossed that people get on board with the book, and that it finds an audience, and enough of one that the publisher wants to go ahead with another. Douglas and McIntyre, great BC publisher. They've been fantastic through this whole thing. We've now done 2 books during a pandemic, and I just couldn't have asked for a more supportive publisher. They've been terrific. It's been really great to this time be able to connect with people, to be able to see the book physically in bookstores, to be able to do a live book launch, which we're doing on the 23rd. That's been fantastic, and so yeah, I hope to get to continue.
The name of the book is Noonday Dark. It's available from Douglas and McIntyre. My thanks to Charlie Demers.
Thanks so much, John. I really appreciate it.